Today's lesson is Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway reopens after 13 years. Hi everybody, my name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And today we're going to talk about a highway here in Taiwan that recently reopened after being closed for many, many years. There are a couple of highways that have been closed in recent years, but the one down south, the Southern Cross Island Highway, has reopened. It's closed down again because of a typhoon, but now it's open once again.
Yes, it's open and a lot of people are very happy about it because it means that it will connect a lot of places in the south to other parts of Taiwan, and tourists can also use this highway to reach very beautiful spots around the island.
Indeed. Now, have you ever been on the Southern Cross Island Highway before, Helen?
I have not, because not being a driver, I don't often take these highways. I don't often travel by bus either. So it's definitely something that I'm going to put on my list of things to do in Taiwan.
Well, there are some restrictions to traveling on the South Cross Island Highway that you probably should know about, and we'll talk about those restrictions as we continue with our lesson, but still it's good news as we start off the month of August. Yes, indeed, if you haven't gone down there yet, head down to southern Taiwan and check out the Southern Cross Island Highway. You might find it quite an adventurous proposition. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's read the first paragraph now, and we'll come back to discuss it.
Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway reopens after 13 years. After a closure lasting more than a decade, Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway was finally reopened to motorists in May. The highway, which links Tainan in the west to Taidong in the east, was closed in 2009 after Typhoon Morakot damaged about 140 kilometers of road and washed away 22 bridges. Since then, engineers have worked hard to rebuild the damaged sections.
大家好，第一部分我们看到名词 closure， 表示道路或边界等的封闭，或是工厂企业的永久性关闭或是停业。例如 ，The closure of the road caused a serious traffic jam this morning。这条道路封闭造成今天早上严重塞车。或是 Many people will be affected by the closure of this factory。许多人将会因为这个工厂的关闭而受到影响。另外，补充这个字的动词 close C-L-O-S-E close 指关闭或是打烊。我们可以说 The library closes on Sundays 图书馆每周日闭馆。或者 The store will close in 10 minutes 那间店在10分钟就打烊。
So in today's news article, we're talking about Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway. Now, after a closure lasting more than a decade, Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway was finally reopened to motorists in May. So we know that this highway has been closed or had been closed for over a decade, over 10 years, or 13 years to be precise, but it finally reopened in May to motorists. Now, closure here just means the act of stopping operations or closing something, like a business or an organization, or in this case, a highway. And motorists refers to a person who drives a car. And you might wonder, why didn't the writer just say driver instead of motorist? Well, motorist is used mainly when talking about traffic and transportation.
Right. On any kind of motorized vehicle, whether it be a car or a motorcycle, or a truck or bus or whatever. And this closure lasted for more than a decade. And after that closure, the South Cross Island Highway was finally reopened. The highway, which links Tainan in the west to Taidong in the east, was closed in 2009 after Typhoon Morakot damaged about 140 kilometers of road and washed away 22 bridges. So that's why the highway was closed. This links Tainan and Taidong to each other. So if you're down in Taidong and you want to go to Tainan, well, now you can take the South Cross Island Highway or the Southern Cross Island Highway. But when it was closed, you had to go all the way down to Nanhui Gonglu, down there by Daren over to Fenggang. You had to go that way, which would be longer in one way. But in any case, the Southern Cross Island Highway is now reopened, and it's more a direct way to get from Taidong in the east to Tainan in the west or south.
That's right. So this Typhoon Marakat, which hit Taiwan in 2009, really caused a lot of damage. So as a result of this typhoon, 22 bridges were washed away. So when something is washed away, it's carried away by rain or by a river. So I could also say, for instance, heavy rain washed away houses on the sides of the mountain.
Indeed. So some bridges were washed away, which means the water came and damaged them, and the bridges fell down the mountain. So there was no way to cross over rivers and streams up in the mountains, and the road was damaged as well. And since then, engineers have worked hard to rebuild the damaged sections. So, of course, we had engineers and workers heading into the mountains on a daily basis trying to rebuild the road. And since that time, since Marakat caused all that damage, engineers have been working hard, and they finally rebuilt the damaged sections, and hopefully they are strong and reinforced so that doesn't happen again. And people who live in those areas are no longer so isolated and cut off. Well, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now and continue to talk about the Southern Cross Island Highway.
The last section passed its safety checks in April and was officially opened on May 1st, allowing motorists to drive the full length of the highway for the first time in 13 years. However, precautionary restrictions remain in place. The section is closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays and operates only between the hours of 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on the remaining days. Furthermore, only passenger cars and motorcycles are allowed, while heavy vehicles such as trucks and tour buses are prohibited.
第二部分我们看到单字 precautionary， 这个字是形容词，指预防的。例如 We need to take precautionary measures against the rising water of the river, for otherwise our town will be in danger of flooding. 我们得要对不断高涨的河水做好防范措施，否则我们的城镇就会有淹水的危险。或是 You must take precautionary measures to keep insects at bay when you go camping in the mountains. 你去山里露营时，必须做好预防措施，以避免虫子靠近。另外，把这个字字尾的 ary 去掉，就变成了这个字的名词 precaution， 意思是防范措施或是预防。像是 I assure you that we've taken the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of our passengers. 我向您保证，我们有采取必要的预防措施，以确保乘客安全。也可以说As a precaution against disease, I always wash my hands with soap and water. 为了预防疾病，我总是用肥皂洗手。再来，我们看到动词 prohibit， 指禁止或是不允许。举例来说 The restaurant prohibits smoking inside its premises. 那家餐厅禁止在其营业场所吸烟。或是 Hikers are prohibited from venturing off the trails in the mountain. 登山客禁止冒险走登山小径之外的地方。另外补充这个字的同义词 forbid， F-O-R-B-I-D forbid， 指禁止或是不准。像是 The cafe forbids people from bringing in any outside food or drinks. 这间咖啡简餐店禁止人们携带外食或饮料。也可以说 I forbid you to go out this weekend. 我不准你这周末出门。
So we found out in the last section that engineers had to work really hard to rebuild the damaged sections of the highway. Now, the last section passed its safety checks in April and was officially opened on May 1st, allowing motorists to drive the full length of the highway for the first time in 13 years. So after the engineers, the experts repaired or rebuilt the highway or sections of the highway, they need to put those sections through some safety checks. They can't just say, well, it's finished. Now the public can use these sections of the highway, because what if there are some problems? So they need to put them through safety checks to check if they are safe. And this was done in April. And after all of the sections passed the safety checks, the highway was opened officially on the 1st of May.
Right, so they had some final safety inspections, some safety checks, and the road was finally cleared to be opened on May 1st, and motorists, people driving cars or motorcycles, could drive the full length of the highway for the first time in 13 years. I think I was able to drive on the Southern Cross Island Highway many years ago, but I don't really remember it. It was in the days of standard definition video, and that was a really long time ago. However, precautionary restrictions remain in place. Okay, so they have opened the highway with conditions. We've got some precautionary restrictions, and they remain in place. If something's precautionary, that means they're careful beforehand, okay? So before people can drive in there, they've still made some restrictions so that there isn't any trouble. When they opened the new tunnels on the East Coast, of course, they had some precautionary restrictions for speed limits. They wouldn't let people drive through those tunnels faster than a certain speed limit. That was precautionary, just to make sure everything was okay. When they were assured that everything was okay, then the speed limits came up. And here we've got some precautionary restrictions. They're still in place. They may be lifted in the future, but for now, we've still got these restrictions, which means not everybody can go there. It's limited to certain kinds of vehicles at certain times.
Right. A restriction is a rule that limits something or that controls something. So, for instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government imposed restrictions on eating on trains. So the government didn't want the virus to spread. So the restriction was that people could not eat their 便当 on trains. So even though this Southern Cross Island Highway is open, there are precautionary restrictions that remain in place. To remain means to continue to be. So if a situation remains, it continues to exist. I could also say, as an example, after the divorce, the man remained single for the rest of his life. So he never got remarried.
He learned his lesson, indeed, not to get married again. But in this particular case, those precautionary restrictions are still in place, so be aware of them if you're planning to travel on the Southern Cross Island Highway. The section is closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays and operates only between the hours of 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on the remaining days. So be careful there. Plan accordingly if you're going to drive across the Southern Cross Island Highway. Again, it's closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so you can't go on the road on those 2 days during the week. And then you can only be on the road between the hours of 7 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And that, of course, applies to the remaining days, which would be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then the weekend as well. So you can't travel there after 2 p.m. So again, you've got to plan accordingly. Plan your trip ahead of time to make sure you don't get stuck down in Shishang or someplace like that.
Furthermore, only passenger cars and motorcycles are allowed, while heavy vehicles such as trucks and tour buses are prohibited. So this sentence starts with the word furthermore, which is used to connect a statement with a previous one. So the previous statement was talking about when the highway section was open, and furthermore, or in addition to this piece of information, only passenger cars and motorcycles are allowed. So another example of furthermore could be, I could say, for instance, I don't want you to eat any more candy. Furthermore, I want you to brush your teeth after every meal.
Exactly. So that's another restriction. In addition, passenger cars are allowed and motorcycles are allowed, but not heavy vehicles like trucks and tour buses. They are prohibited. It's not legal for them to go on the road. If you arrive there in a big tour bus, they're going to say, nope, sorry, you can't go this way. You need to turn around and find another way to get over to Tainan or Taidong or wherever you're going. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third and final part.
A line of vehicles stretching for 5 kilometers was waiting to cross the newly repaired section on the morning of its reopening. The highway is crucial for residents and is expected to provide a much-needed boost to local tourism.
最后第三部分，我们看到单字 boost， 这个字是名词，指提升、拉抬或是助长、推动。例如 The company's sales got a boost from a recent news story that drew attention to their products. 最近一则新闻让他们的产品受到关注，而使这间公司的销售量大增。或是 If you need a boost of energy, there are chocolate bars in the kitchen. 如果你需要补充能量的话，厨房里有巧克力棒。另外，这个字也可以当作动词，指提升或是增加。像是 Ellen boosts her immune system by regularly taking vitamin C. Ellen 藉由定期服用维他命 C 来增强免疫力。也可以说 An aggressive ad campaign boosted sales. 积极的广告活动提升了业绩。
So on the day of the highway's opening, everybody was very excited. A line of vehicles stretching for 5 kilometers was waiting to cross the newly repaired section on the morning of its reopening. So there were a lot of vehicles, cars, motorcycles, perhaps scooters. They were all in line waiting to cross, waiting to use the section of the highway.
Indeed, so you can expect that lots of people were looking forward to this. People had not been able to drive across the Southern Cross Island Highway for 13 years. So a line of vehicles stretched for many kilometers. They were waiting to cross the newly repaired section on the morning of its reopening, and the highway is crucial for residents and is expected to provide a much-needed boost to local tourism. Now, in this sentence, we're describing the highway as being crucial for residents, for people who live there. If something's crucial, it's critical, it's necessary for success. And again, if you're a resident, any of those towns or villages on the Southern Cross Island Highway, well, this is an important form of transportation. It's vital, it's important. You can't really survive without that road. And of course, I'm curious as to how they did survive for 13 years without the highway there. But again, it's crucial for the residents. And a resident is someone who lives in a specific place. Like Helen and I are both residents of lovely, lovely Taipei.
That's right. And the highway also provides a much-needed boost to local tourism. So tourism refers to the business of providing services related to holidays and vacations to people. That's what tourism is. And a lot of people go on holidays to southern Taiwan, and that's the tourism industry there. And this highway, of course, its reopening is going to be a boost to local tourism. Boost is the act of helping something to increase or to improve. So in other words, the highway is going to be a big help to local tourism.
Indeed. So eventually, of course, all the hype will die down and you'll be able to cross the highway without running into massive traffic jams. But again, it's mostly for the residents there, and of course they also can welcome tourists because they bring tourist dollars to buy souvenirs and eat at their restaurants and maybe stay in their bed and breakfasts and things like that. So again, it will be a boost to local tourism, and it's a cause for everybody to celebrate. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分有一个句子写到 However, precautionary restrictions remain in place. 然而预防性限制仍然实行着。那文中用到片语 in place， 字面意思是在位置上，可以用来表达在正确位置留在原地。像我们说 run in place for 3 minutes， 就是可以表达原地跑步3分钟。那么 in place 也可以进一步表达出某物在运作状态实行运转中，或者是表达准备就绪就位的意思。举例来说 All the necessary equipment is in place， 所有必要的设备已准备就绪。好，那有一个相关用法是 put something in place， 就可以用来表达将某事物就定位，或者是说呢使政策状态等等准备就绪。那这时候它就有那种施行使什么生效，像我们要施行法令政令等等。假设我们说 The new law will be put in place next year， 就是表达那条新法令将于明年上路。好，那课文第二部分最后用到单字 prohibit， 我们来学习它的字首字根。先看到字根 habit 或者是 hibit， 它们会有这种居住 live 或者是保持 keep， 或是拥有 have 的意思。那很多带有这一类字根的字呢，都有居住的意思。像 habitat 我们知道是栖息地动植物居住生长的地方。而在 prohibit 这个字当中，它的字首 pro 表示在点点点之前，那么 hibit 它表示保持或者是握住，它就有那种 hold 的意思。我们在前方握着禁止标志不让人通行，那用这样的画面去联想到 prohibit， 它有禁止阻止的意思咯。好，那顺便补充几个这一类字根的单字。第一个是 exhibit， 它的字首 ex 表示向外，那么字根 hibit 表示拥有。那我们试着联想咯，你把拥有的东西对外展示，对外秀出你所拥有的，那这样应该可以想到 exhibit 这个动词它有展现显示或是陈列的意思，它当名词就可以表达展览、展示品、陈列品。那第二个补充的是 cohabit， 它的字首 co 是来自 com 表示一起，那么 com 只是因为碰到 h 开头或者是母音开头的字根，所以它才拼成了 co。好，在它后面加上这个字根 habit 表示居住，把字首字根合在一起，从字面上它就有那种一起居住的意思，所以 cohabit 那就是同居了。第三个补充的是 inhabit， 它的字首 in 表示在点点点之中，字根 habit 表示居住，那么 inhabit 这个动词它表示居住于点点点，栖息在点点点。那在 inhabit 后面加上字尾 ant 表达执行者，那我们试着想咯，执行居住、执行栖息的这个动作的人是谁呢？ inhabitant 它就表示居民或者是栖息在某处的动物咯。好，以上是今天的重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Restriction. During the summer, the local council placed restrictions on water usage. Remain. The brothers remained hopeful that their lost dog would find its way home. Furthermore, I have no time to go shopping with you. Furthermore, I have no money right now. Prohibit. The sale of alcohol to people under the age of 18 is prohibited in this country. Crucial. Crucial evidence went missing during the police investigation. Resident. After his marriage to an American, Luke became a permanent resident of the U.S. Tourism. The tourism industry has suffered greatly in recent years.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for our lesson today. The question is, would you want to travel along the Southern Cross Island Highway? Why or why not?
Well, I don't drive, but if I did drive a car, if I were a motorist, I would definitely want to travel across the Southern Cross Island Highway because there are so many beautiful areas of Taiwan that I have not seen yet.
Well, I would like to travel along the highway again because I haven't been there in many years, so I probably forgot what it kind of looks like, but I'm sure I would be amazed to go along that highway again. I seem to remember a town called Yako, and then there was a tunnel up there somewhere, and there were lots of pine trees growing up there or evergreen trees growing up there. It is like heaven on earth. Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.